You probably know someone who looks wealthy. The nice car, the upgraded lifestyle, the polished image. But here's what's strange. You also probably know someone who drives an older vehicle, lives in a modest neighborhood, and never talks about money. And statistically, the second person is far more likely to actually be rich. Why does wealth hide in plain sight? Why do people who earn less sometimes accumulate more? And why does the version of success we're taught to recognize often have nothing to do with actual financial security? There's a quiet tension in modern life. You work harder, you earn more, yet the gap between income and peace of mind keeps widening. The markers of success keep shifting. A promotion feels good for a month, then the baseline resets. A bonus gets absorbed into lifestyle inflation before you even notice. And underneath it all, there's this nagging question. If I'm doing everything right, why doesn't it feel like I'm getting ahead? The truth is, most people confuse looking successful with being successful. And that confusion is expensive. It doesn't just cost money, it costs time, energy, and the compounding power of decisions you didn't make because you were too busy funding an image. So what separates people who build real wealth from people who just look like they have it? What do they do differently when no one's watching? And why does their approach feel so counterintuitive in a world that rewards visibility, spending, and keeping up? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're the ones that matter. Because if your financial decisions are shaped more by what's expected than by what actually works, you're not building wealth, you're renting the appearance of it. And that's a game you can't win long-term. Welcome to Wealth Notes Lane. This channel is about thinking clearly in a noisy world, about money, business, and building a future that actually holds up over time. Today, we're breaking down the ideas from The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko, and why they matter more now than ever. This book was first published in 1996, based on decades of research into actual millionaires, not the ones you see on social media or television, but the ones living quietly in middle-class neighborhoods, driving used cars, and making decisions most people would never associate with wealth. Stanley and Danko studied over 1,000 millionaires and discovered something that contradicted almost everything mainstream culture teaches about money. Real wealth isn't loud. It doesn't perform, and the people who have it often look nothing like what you'd expect. Now, nearly 30 years later, these ideas are even more relevant. We live in an era where appearance is currency. Instagram, LinkedIn, the pressure to signal success visibly has never been higher. At the same time, job security has collapsed. AI tools like ChatGPT are automating work that used to require years of training. Entire industries are being reshaped by companies like OpenAI, NVIDIA, and Microsoft. And the gap between those who understand leverage and those who don't is widening fast. The old path, get a degree, get a stable job, work for 30 years, is breaking down. Income no longer guarantees wealth. Effort no longer guarantees security. And the people who are quietly building real financial independence today are the ones who understand what Stanley and Danko discovered decades ago. Wealth is not about what you earn, it's about what you keep, what you build, and how you think when no one's watching. So let's talk about what they found. And more importantly, let's talk about how you apply it now, in a world where the rules have changed, but the principles haven't. The core insight of the book is simple but uncomfortable. Most millionaires don't look like millionaires. They live below their means. They drive older cars. They avoid debt. They invest consistently. And they ignore almost everything society tells them they should want. The people who look rich, the ones with the luxury cars, the big houses and expensive neighborhoods, the designer clothes, they're often not wealthy at all. They're high income, but low net worth. They earn well, but they spend everything. Or worse, they spend more than they earn and carry debt to maintain the image. Stanley and Danko called these people under-accumulators of wealth. They have income, but no compounding, no safety net, no optionality.
Real millionaires, the ones the research uncovered, were the opposite. They were over-accumulators of wealth. They lived in modest homes, they bought used cars and drove them for years. They didn't care about impressing neighbors. And because they kept their expenses low, they could invest aggressively and consistently. Over time, compounding did the heavy lifting. This idea feels almost offensive in 2025. We're surrounded by pressure to upgrade your phone, your wardrobe, your living situation. There's always a new baseline. Social media feeds are full of people who appear to be winning, and if you're not keeping up visibly, it feels like you're falling behind. But here's the psychological trap. The more you spend to look successful, the less capital you have to actually become successful. Every dollar that goes toward appearance is a dollar that can't compound, and compounding is everything. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest people on the planet, still lives in the house he bought in 1958 for $31,000, not because he can't afford better, because he understands that wealth is built by letting money work, not by letting lifestyle consume it. Now think about your own decisions. How much of your income goes toward things that signal status versus things that build compounding assets? How much of what you buy is because you actually need it versus because it's expected or because everyone around you is doing it? And here's the harder question. If you stripped away everything designed to impress other people, what would your financial position actually look like? The book introduces a simple formula to measure this. Take your age, multiply it by your pre-tax household income, then divide it by 10. That's roughly what your net worth should be if you're accumulating wealth at an expected rate. If you're significantly below it, you're likely spending too much relative to what you earn. If you're above it, you're doing what most millionaires do, living below your means and letting the difference compound. Most people fail this test, not because they don't earn enough, because they spend in proportion to or beyond what they earn. And the problem compounds in reverse. The more you earn, the more pressure there is to upgrade. You move to a bigger house, you buy a nicer car, you send your kids to expensive schools, and suddenly, even a six-figure income feels tight. You're trapped on what's called the hedonic treadmill, where every increase in income gets absorbed by lifestyle, and you never actually get ahead. Stanley and Danko found that real millionaires rejected this completely. They didn't care what their neighbors thought. They didn't feel the need to prove anything. And because they were psychologically free from status games, they could make decisions that actually built wealth. Let's apply this to today. You're in a job market where entire career paths are being automated. AI tools are replacing roles that used to pay well. Companies like Amazon, Meta, and Google have laid off tens of thousands of workers in the last 2 years. Job security, even in traditionally stable fields, is fragile. So if you're spending everything you earn or going into debt to maintain a lifestyle, you're not just failing to build wealth, you're building vulnerability. One layoff, one market shift, and the foundation cracks. But if you live below your means, if you keep your expenses low and invest the difference, you're building optionality. You're building the ability to take risks, to start a business, to walk away from a bad situation, to invest when opportunities appear. Wealth isn't about having more, it's about having choices, and choices require capital.
Another core principle from the book: millionaires allocate their time differently. They spend hours each month planning their finances, researching investments, and thinking strategically about money. Most people spend more time choosing a vacation than they do managing their financial future, and that misallocation of attention has a cost. Stanley and Danko found that wealthy people treat financial planning like a skill that compounds. They don't outsource their thinking. They learn how investing works. They understand tax efficiency. They know where their money goes. And because they pay attention, they make better decisions over time. They avoid expensive mistakes. They recognize opportunities others miss. Compare that to the average approach.
Most people ignore their finances until there's a problem. They don't track spending, they don't review investments, they let inertia and defaults make decisions for them. And over decades, that passive approach costs them hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, in missed compounding. This is where AI changes the game. Tools like ChatGPT, financial modeling software, automated investment platforms, they give individuals leverage that used to require hiring expensive advisors. You can learn investing principles in hours that used to take years. You can automate good financial behavior. You can model scenarios and see the long-term impact of decisions before you make them. But only if you allocate time to it. Only if you treat financial literacy as a skill worth developing. The people building wealth today, in 2025, are the ones using these tools to think clearer and act smarter. They're not guessing, they're not following trends, they're running the numbers, asking better questions, and making decisions based on logic, not emotion or social pressure. Here's another uncomfortable truth from the book. Most millionaires didn't inherit their wealth. 80% of the millionaires Stanley and Danko studied were first-generation rich. They didn't come from money, they built it. And they built it slowly, through consistent decisions over decades, not through one big break or a lucky bet. This contradicts the narrative we see everywhere: crypto millionaires, tech startup founders, viral success stories. The media focuses on outliers, on people who got rich fast, and that creates a distorted view of how wealth actually works for most people. Real wealth, the kind that lasts, is built through boring, repeatable habits: spending less than you earn, investing the difference, avoiding debt, letting time do the work. Think about NVIDIA. The company didn't become a trillion-dollar giant overnight. Jensen Huang spent decades positioning the company, making long-term bets on GPUs and AI infrastructure, even when no one cared. The payoff looks sudden now, but it was built on years of compounding decisions. The same applies to individuals. The person who invests consistently for 30 years doesn't look impressive at year 5, but at year 30, the results are undeniable. So where are you in that timeline? Are you making decisions that will compound over decades, or are you optimizing for what feels good this year, this month, this week? Because the difference between those two mindsets is the difference between building wealth and staying stuck. The book also highlights a key psychological trait of millionaires. They're not impressed by luxury. They don't see expensive things as status symbols. They see them as distractions from the goal. A luxury car is just a depreciating asset. A big house is just higher maintenance and property taxes. Designer clothes are just money that could have been invested. This isn't about being cheap. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that every financial decision is a trade-off. When you buy something expensive, you're not just spending money, you're giving up future compounding. You're giving up optionality. You're trading long-term freedom for short-term satisfaction.
And in a world where AI and automation are increasing the returns to leverage, that trade-off matters more than ever. The person who keeps expenses low and invests in skills, tools, and assets is building compounding advantages. The person who spends everything on consumption is renting their lifestyle month to month. One group builds leverage. The other stays dependent on the next paycheck. Let's make this concrete. Imagine two people, both earning the same income. One spends 90% of it and invests 10%. The other spends 60% and invests 40%. After 10 years, the second person has 4 times the invested capital. After 20 years, the gap is exponential. Same income, completely different financial futures. The only difference was the decision about what to keep. Stanley and Danko also found that millionaires tend to choose the right occupation, not necessarily the highest-paying one. They became business owners, contractors, engineers, accountants.
They chose fields where hard work and intelligence translated directly into earnings, where they controlled their income, and where there was room for leverage. In 2025, this principle is even more powerful. The internet has decoupled income from location and credentialing. You can build a business on Shopify, sell skills on platforms like Upwork, create content, consult, build software, invest in digital assets. The barriers to entrepreneurship have collapsed. The tools are free or cheap. The distribution is global. But most people still default to traditional employment, trading time for money, with no leverage, no ownership, no compounding. And that's fine if it's intentional. But if you're capable of building leverage, if you're capable of creating assets that generate income without your direct time, and you're not doing it, you're leaving compounding on the table. Here's a final insight from the book that's rarely discussed but incredibly important. Millionaires think generationally. They don't just think about their own wealth, they think about how to teach their kids to build and preserve it. And paradoxically, they often don't give their kids everything. They give them enough to launch, but not so much that it removes the incentive to build their own discipline. Stanley and Danko found that the children of millionaires who received large financial gifts often became dependent on them. They didn't develop the habits that built wealth in the first place. They consumed instead of compounding. And within a generation, the wealth disappeared. This applies even if you're not thinking about kids. It applies to your future self. Are you building habits that will serve you for decades, or are you living in a way that requires everything to keep going perfectly? Because life doesn't go perfectly. Markets crash, jobs disappear, health declines. The people who survive and thrive are the ones who built margin, who live below their means, who have capital to deploy when things get hard. So here's the framework. If you want to build real wealth, not the appearance of it, you focus on a few key principles. 1. Live below your means, significantly below, and invest the difference consistently. 2. Ignore status games. Stop optimizing for what other people think. Optimize for what actually compounds. 3. Allocate time to financial literacy. Treat it like a skill that pays dividends forever. 4. Choose fields and opportunities where you can build leverage, where your effort compounds, where you control your upside. 5. Think long-term, decades, not quarters. The decisions you make today shape the options you'll have in 10, 20, 30 years. This isn't flashy. It won't get you likes on social media, but it works. It worked in 1996, it works now, and it will keep working because the principles are based on math and psychology, not trends. Stanley and Danko didn't study theories, they studied real people who built real wealth. And what they found was simple. Wealth is mostly the result of behavior, not intelligence, not luck, not connections. Behavior. The ability to delay gratification, to ignore social pressure, to think clearly when everyone around you is being driven by emotion and status. And the best part? You can start today. You don't need a windfall. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to stop spending money to impress people and start investing it to build optionality. You need to stop optimizing for this year and start optimizing for the next 30. You need to stop confusing income with wealth and start measuring what actually matters, your net worth, your assets, your compounding. The millionaire next door isn't driving a Tesla. They're not posting their wins online. They're not trying to prove anything. They're quietly building, year after year, decision after decision, and eventually the compounding becomes undeniable. Not because they got lucky, because they thought clearly long enough for the results to catch up. If you think clearly long enough, your results eventually have no choice but to change. This is the kind of thinking we practice here on Wealth Notes Lane.